Just pulled up to the service station on Brookton Highway at Carragullen. Just on the lookout for Steve and Paul. This is our TET 21 trip. Always looking forward to these trips. And come along and join us for the next 2 weeks. See you out there.
He's going to growl again in a minute.
After years of recording this crossing of the rabbit-proof fence, for the first time we're able to see it from the air. From here the gravel road extends all the way to Norseman. However, we turn off at Lake Johnson on the Queen Victoria Rock Road. Due to a late start and the slow progress with the Ocker travelling only at 90 k's as a maximum, we don't make our destination for the night, so we camp on the Scamp Rock Road.
A bandit's first trip.
Do we actually have two options, or?
Yes. So when Stephen and I, after you guys left last time, we found another big camp.
They're not listening.
This is north, this is south, that's
That way.
west.
That's the other way.
So this is the camp where we were with Paul.
Yep.
And we explored that track. That's where the cot is there, and we rode down here. And we did briefly look for another track that way, we couldn't find
And where do we come in?
here.
Driving in, okay.
So we're down here somewhere at the moment. Actually, we're there. Here is quite well shown up in Google Earth, and there's a horse yard there, there's one down here, there's one here, and there's a couple here.
And they're the ones we haven't been to? Or
They're the ones we haven't been to. Here we are on the Great Victoria Rock Road, getting ready to turn to the east to start our journey towards the woodlines.
Asking a question.
I found the rower line. Yeah, it's really cool. 10 minutes. From the air you can get an idea of how sparse the bush is just where we have camped and how isolated it really is. In this shot the blue arrow indicates the line of the railway track. This arrow shows where our camp is in relation to the track. This is our first campsite once we've reached the woodlines. We stay here for about 3 nights before we move to the next location. Alright, we're exploring the old woodlines. We're at a section where the track veers off to the south. We've come from the northeast or something, and we've found what looks like to be the blacksmith's workshop. There's a whole pile of horseshoes, pretty big horseshoes again, and Paul's digging up to find out whether there's any other treasures in the clinker that's on the ground.
Horseshoes.
Like a saw.
Yeah, saw blade.
But there's all these little bits of metal here, but nuts and bolts.
Base camp, radio check.
Base camp, loud and clear.
We're almost at Papa 1. I say again, almost Papa 1.
Okay, almost at point 1. Papa 1.1.
No, we're camped just there. We've ridden to roughly this point here where the arrow is, and we're looking for this area here. There's a horse yard and a big camp. We're going to try and find a set of points and then follow this track down, which should cross over a lake a bit further down here. Be very interesting to see whether they've actually crossed the lake there. The dry salt lakes are often kilometres in diameter. The hard crusty surface belies the wet mud below. We take the 3 bikes on the edge of the lake for about 400 metres just to see how the going is.
Very short dog spike was in there. And there's another one there.
They're strange dog spikes, aren't they? Compared to the ones we normally find.
What be that?
Don't know, it's got writing on top, on the top and the bottom.
Cork in it.
Yeah.
Oh, crucian salts.
There you go. You think it got a bit hot out here?
Mmm. Some burnt up glass.
Melted.
Yeah, very nice. That's a nice bottle.
Have you got one?
No, I haven't.
Paul was going to leave it.
Was he?
And I said, Mark might want. He goes, well, if he wants to come back, I said, you won't be able to find it again.
Oh, the mules. It's a hauling.
Nay!
I don't know what the fuck it is.
It's the bracket that goes around the horse's head so they can pull cart and shit.
It's a horse collar.
A horse collar.
This is our haul of treasures from yesterday. The ones we left behind for other people.
Got it. Got it. It's a Schweppes bottle. It's a beauty.
We've just ridden about 5k's through the bush and we've arrived at the horse yards that we discovered yesterday at what is a rather large camp. And we'll have a quick look here and then we're going to duck further towards the south and try and find a railway crossing across the lake. Even though the bikes are small, they do the job really well. I think the postie bike is the best of the lot. As we head out on the old donkey track, you can see a pile of sleepers left behind from over 80 years ago. Donkeys aren't stupid animals. They've actually followed the old railway line track to make their own track. There's a range of scrub we drive through, from just trees to tea tree type bushes that are hard to push through with the bikes. There's also hard compact clay to loose fine sand. While we are only 4 or 5k's away from our base camp, we're at least 150k's from the nearest town or any other habitation. On the way down to the lake where we think the railway line crosses, we've come across another small campsite with a lake in the background. Disappointingly, it looks like someone else may have been here before because we can see quad bike tracks. Just digging up an old axe head that's in the ground and a bit rusty on that side, so I can't tell what brand it is. It does have a small dot in the middle of it just there. As we approached the Salt Lake crossing, we had to ride across a fairly long length of rail formation built out of sand. It was very hard riding on this loose sand. This is a pretty big formation that's been formed through the bush and it is going across the lake. So there's a huge amount of work that's gone into building this formation for the railway line to be built on. This aerial view from the drone clearly shows the railway formation approaching the Salt Lake crossing. In 2021 we're very isolated here. In 1925 it was even more so. On our return home to the main camp, we spotted this donkey. He headed off into the bush, but after a while he started chasing Paul. I think he fell in love. I've ridden from the main camp about 3 kilometres through the bush, directly to a horse yard. We found it, and at the back you can see there are a number of horse troughs still sitting around. I'll never say any find is any better than any other, but finding an old clock on the ground is just great. The morning temperatures were usually pretty low, often below zero. So a good campfire and a hot cup of coffee in the morning were essential. I don't know when rubbish becomes treasure, but after 80 years we love looking for the old bottles. The cans though, they're still a problem. But they do give a good indication of what type of food the people out here used to consume. Exploring the old woodlines, right behind me you can see 3 tracks in the ground, or 3 impressions in the ground. That's from the horse and dray. The middle track is where the horse walked, and the 2 side ones are the wheels of the dray. This is an aerial shot of our campsite in the horse yard. It's our number 2 camp on the woodlines. Like I said, it gets cold out here. Minus 2.3. And it's frozen. We're out about 2 kilometres from our base camp that we set up down that way. Out hunting bottles again, or just the old remnants of the camps that are around. This is a gin bottle. Probably been lying here for 70 or 80 years. The camp's not very big, just a small scattering of bottles and tin cans around the place. One quart of something. This is a good example of 2 trees that have been cut down, and the one at the back has regrown from the stump.
Not a little one. Tar.
Paul and Stephen are riding across an old formation that goes over a collapsed culvert. Another day, another donkey track to follow to a rocky outcrop with some water. Heard some donkeys from our camp last night. They were further towards the northeast of us, and we've ridden down the woodlines about 3 k's now, and we come across this great big rocky outcrop, and there's heaps of water here, and this will be where the donkeys are drinking from. This looks like a signal from a toy train set. It just goes to show that kids were out here as well. This doesn't actually look like much, but I think it's a child's toy. It's a wheel that's got a wire frame attached to it that you push around in front of you. These were very popular decades ago with small kids, especially when they didn't have electronic toys like they do today. White jars, sometimes they're Pond's cold cream that the women used to use. Sometimes they're Vegemite jars, but this one is actually a Marmite jar. We found a lot of Marmite jars out here and no Vegemite ones. And people used to make all sorts of contraptions out of what they had. So some sort of oil tin, and the holes cut in probably to make it as a lamp. Wandering through the bush, I found this round ring, which turns out to be a wheel, and then the remains of a tricycle with its seat. Here's an old hurricane lamp left hanging in the tree. While we're away exploring, the dogs wait patiently in the ocker. This is some of the debris that's around the old woodlines. This is the horse yard, and these are the feed troughs or water troughs that the horses used to get their meals and water from. A lot of other stuff buried under the debris. It's metal. Interesting things like funnels, an old Coolgardie safe, beer bottles, other magical devices. Don't know what this little sucker is. And then we've got Paul, who's made a new sort of breakfast. It's called
Bacon, and I'm going to call it googs. So bacon and googs. I think that'll stick.
So how'd you prepare that?
I just cracked a few eggs in the fry pan. Thought maybe that'd work. Come and get it!
We're back at the other big railway camp that we found. Stephen is walking away on one track. And here appears to be what was another railway line here which intersected with the track Stephen was on. And there is a third one just past the motorbikes, which you founded.
Big pile of dog spikes and bolts and nuts and different sorts.
Yeah, fuck it there.
We've had a pretty tough ride to this point here. The last couple of k's was through some pretty dense bush and rock. We missed the railway line and only found it a few minutes ago. And we found a horse yard in the middle of the bush, and we're going to explore around here before we head back to the main camp. This aerial shot gives you a good idea of the railway formation going into the distance. You can actually see the horse yard on the left hand side coming up. The remoteness makes the three people, that's us three guys, in the horse yard on our bikes look very, very small. Many years ago someone left their mug in the fork of a tree, and Paul's found a very neat little blue bottle.
Wonder what it would have been in there. It's got JT written on the bottom.
Here's some of the treasures we found but left behind at this old horse yard. As we head out, you can see the old bottles and tin cans left behind. We have now been out in the bush for 8 days. Today is the day that we move camp, but it's also the day that Paul and Stacey have to pack up and leave for home. Our three vehicles are on the track we made into the horse yard, and we're making our way back to the main track that gets us out.